Cool.
So I got to say,
Cool.
guys, it's always nice to have an afternoon with an Academy Award nominee and a world renowned astrophysicist. Like, is there a better way to spend it? I got the seat at the cool kids table today. What's going on?
Anytime we're gonna do.
So I have a few questions I wanted to ask you, not related to the film, and then I got some on the film that I'm really passionate about. So I'm excited to do this. So you know, Neil, I have to say, of all the profound things you've ever said, the one thing that you said that you brought me to tears, like instantly, I was not expecting this, was about your quote about dogs and how they want to be with you all the time and how they want to really enjoy your company. And here's where you got me. Every single day of a dog's life is an equivalent to a week of your life. They make every day count. It reminded me of a quote by Warren Zevon where he says, you know, enjoy every sandwich. Like, and I was crying. Listen, the way you set that up, where they just want to go for a ride with you. And I got to tell you, I think I have my own Interstellar thing now, where I leave the house and I'm like, all right, I was gone for 20 minutes. So how many years of my life, my dog's life, was that? So,
right.
So thank you for that. It was just a really powerful quote for a guy who owns 3 dogs. It was very, thank you for that.
Oh, beautiful. Let me just say that my medium is, like, yes, I speak and, you know, I give lectures and write, and jumping in with Scott, that's a whole other way of communicating and storytelling, with the visual and music and editing, all of this coming together. So it was, I was fascinating to be able to see Scott at work doing what he did for this film, knowing that I attempt that on occasion with just sort of words that you read, but when the words become visual imagery, that's a whole other craft. And as you know, you got movie posters on your back wall there. As you know, movies are way more impactful than books when movies get out there, and the needles that they have the power to move. So yeah.
So Scott and Neil, do you guys have a guilty pleasure sci-fi movie? Like, for me, it's Astronaut Farmer. I don't know if you guys.
I don't even know that one.
I should have brought that up. Yeah, I knew you were going to laugh at that. But do you have a guilty pleasure when it comes to sci-fi movies? Both of you. I'm curious to hear your answers.
Yeah, guilty pleasure, so it can't really be quality.
Right. It's like a cheesy movie on a Friday night. You got nothing to do. You love it for some reason. It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be as good as it is, but you love it.
Got it. I guess mine would be the fake. What's the fake Star Wars convention one?
Yeah.
Spaceballs?
Galaxy Quest.
Oh, Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
Galaxy
Oh, no, wait.
Oh,
now I'm confused.
Spaceball, was it Spaceballs? I thought
Spaceball. No, Spaceballs is Mel Brooks, which
gotcha.
Is
okay.
Oh, no. Galaxy Quest, which had that one had like major actors in it.
That's right.
Yeah, Galaxy Quest. Yeah.
That's a really good Alan Rickman. That's a good movie.
Alan Rickman was in that for sure.
Yeah.
It might be a little too quality for what you were asking for, but I do love it.
That's great. What about you, Neil? You have a guilty pleasure?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. Would it count as a guilty pleasure if I don't return to it often? But I have to say, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was singular in what it attempted to accomplish, and I just thought, there's no turning back after this one. Oh, but apart from that, I would say but that's like new. It was campy. I would say, Idiocracy.
Oh, another good one. That's with Wilson. Owen Wilson's brother. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll remember it.
Name. Yeah.
It's definitely Wilson. So my second to last thing before we get to this awesome documentary is so I've heard your list, Neil, about sci-fi movies you love, the ones that are accurate, not so accurate. Is there one that makes you get more emotional than others? Like, for me, on your list of great movies that you love, Contact, I cannot watch it without sobbing. Is there one that really does it for Scott, you two? Is there one that does it for either of you that really gets you emotional? Science aside, maybe?
A sci-fi movie that gets me emotional. I think Contact, what made Contact powerful is not so much even the story, but a lot of thought was put into portraying how people might react to that story. And with the cults that rose up, and one was a suicide cult, and one was people with tin foil on their hats and everything I know about the public tells me that's exactly what would happen.
Hmm.
And I get emotional only because I see that every day, and I try to muster what it takes to as an educator, you're there trying to make a change, and it keeps rising up, and then you wonder, am I being effective at all? Or what I tell myself, whether I have earned it or not, I tell myself, maybe without me, all of this would be even worse
Right.
than what I currently see.
Mm.
And that's
Yes
how
is
I
the answer to that, Neil. Yes.
that's how I keep going every day.
And you never see the aliens, Neil, which is awesome. It's like you did it successfully without having to take the easy way out, I feel like.
You mean in
Contact.
Contact.
Yes.
Yeah. So not only in Contact, but also in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
That's right.
You do not see the aliens in either one of those.
Correct.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So my last thing is this. So I love NASA, right? I remember when Christy McAuliffe died, I was in my 6th grade classroom, and our teacher told us 11:15. I remember her like crying. Like I remember there was this thing with space and NASA, which I love. I look at NASA like I look at like role models. They inspire you to dream. Why has it been so long since we've gone to the moon? You know, I'm sure you get this a lot. You know, nobody born after 935, if that is correct. It's been 50 years. Is it the price? Is it dependent on the president? Because I feel like we need this new generation of dreamers, and I almost feel like, you know, why aren't we going there? Is there nothing to be? I don't know. I guess I'll let you finish that out, and that'll be my last thing.
Do you want the facade answer, or do you want like the deeper answer?
I want the one that you love most.
Okay, the one that I think is most accurate.
Yeah.
Is if you, in the era that we went to the moon, we told ourselves we're going to the moon because we're explorers, we're discoverers, it's in our DNA, we're Americans. Whereas you part the curtains and we're going to beat the Russians. There was no other motivation. Kennedy's speech, we'll put a man on the moon, return him safely to Earth before the decade is out. That's chiseled into the granite in the back of the bust, sculptured bust in Kennedy Space Center. But there's a whole rest of the wall. There's nothing there. Put the rest of his speech there, where he said, if the events of recent weeks, this is 1962, May, Yuri Gagarin had just come out of orbit in April. The events of couldn't even utter his name. If the events of recent weeks are any indication of the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere, we need to show the world the path of freedom over the path of tyranny. It was a battle cry against communism. That's what wrote the checks. You can say whatever you want once the checks are written that makes you feel good about yourself. But we went there motivated by war and by trying to show the world that we were better than the godless commies. Once we learned that they're not going to the moon, the whole program stopped. It had nothing to do with charisma of a president. It had nothing to do with that. And until you are geopolitically motivated to do something expensive with no economic return, you're not going back at all. And that's exactly how that unfolded. Oh, we have Artemis now. Oh, we're going back to the moon. Oh, park the curtains. China's going to the moon. All of a sudden, we have a adversary again, a frenemy. Okay? So why did we go back in 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010? No one was threatening us. We didn't feel threatened. We feel threatened. Of course, we'll go back. With geopolitical forces where your life is threatened and your livelihood is threatened, they override all other forces. So no, it's not that we needed someone with charisma. It's not that we needed political will. It's not that we needed more people to want to do it. Is that we needed, because it's expensive and there's no return on that investment, we needed these other reasons. And there it is.
That's an excellent answer. So I'm going to segue into shot in the arm, right? So we talk about the moon. There's conspiracy theorists, right? I kept thinking kind of that same way when I was watching Shot in the Arm. There's 3 people I want to talk about Shot in the Arm that I kind of associate with what a conspiracy theorist is, right? I would use the word cult leader. I'm not a big fan, but when I heard this quote, guys, I got to tell you, I had to pause it. I had to walk away for a little. I had to process what I heard. This is a quote from the doc. Irish, I watched a report that measles is deadly. I think we have to question what we call deadly. So is drinking water. Del Bigtree. I'm like, did I just hear that? Is that accurate? Like, I could not believe that, Scott, Neil. I can't believe there's someone on this planet that thinks that way. I mean, I get freedom of expression, freedom in the doc, Scott.
Are you going to say the second half of what he said there too? Because I'll finish it for you.
Yeah, finish it.
It's as shocking. Then he goes on to say, so people say that measles is deadly, the terrible water quote. So if Ebola was sweeping the country, talk to me then. So he's speaking in 2019 when we're seeing record-breaking measles outbreaks, and then he's trying to discount the dangers of measles with the quote you just said. But on top of it, and the irony of it is that we went into COVID, is him saying, if Ebola was sweeping the country, then I'm going to be a reasonable person about these questions about vaccines. COVID comes, not the equivalent of Ebola, but well worth the metaphor, and he didn't change his mind at all. He just moved the goalposts again.
But I feel like he's like a cult. Wait, Scott, I don't want to keep saying this, but I feel like he's like a cult leader. He preys on these people that need answers or want answers, and he forces, like, he's somebody that's a perfect example of somebody with a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. He's that guy. Like, he's very dangerous, and it was like and I tell you what really caught me off guard is I kind of liked Robert Kennedy Jr. before I heard his stance on vaccinations, because when I don't know who asked him this, I think it might have been a producer. He said, when asked if there was any vaccines over the course of history that were a benefit to mankind, he replied, I don't know the answer to that. I can't believe he said that. I had to pause it again and walk. You asked him that, Scott? Scott, does he really think that?
Sure. That's the question that I want to see all journalists ask him. Right?
Yes.
He'll say, I'm not anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. They're trying to pin me and make me look crazy if they say, excuse me, I'm anti-vax. So the follow-up question is the same one that I asked him. If you're saying you aren't anti-vax, please tell us, sir, the vaccines that you are pro, and let it sit there. And he's not going to say anything, or he's going to dance around, because he couldn't even say polio. It was just, it's absolutely, it is shocking and very, very strange.
Neil, is there a way to curtail somebody's opinion? I guess everybody can have one, but I feel like when your opinion...
No, you don't want to stop the opinions. What you want to do is have people in their educational arc be trained to spot charlatans so that the charlatan never rises to power. So in a free country, think what you want. But if you rise to power on a platform of ignorance and then influence the thinking of others, that's dangerous. That will unravel the functioning engines of an informed democracy. And so we need to say, again, they can say what they want, but if you say whatever you want and you're powerful, that's what worries me. And so yeah, Scott and I have different tactics here. I don't go beating them on the head saying, you idiot, how could you possibly say this? I look to the electorate as an educator. I'll say, this is how you need to think about data and information and probability and statistics and lethality. Now, when you understand that, then they step forward. There's no way they'd be giving that level of attention to these charismatic charlatans.
And I got to tell you, I wasn't familiar with Del Bigtree, I have to be honest. And I'm pretty in tune to things. I almost thought this was a caricature. I didn't realize this is an actual person. Like, I feel like this is something I'd watch on HBO on The Righteous Gemstones, where somebody's pretending to be this like preacher / pastor and going over the top. I cannot believe this is a real person spewing this stuff. Like, he's destroying lives with his words. And I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but I don't know. Scott, I'm so happy you asked Robert Kennedy Jr. that question. That was a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and consider that I don't know any other organized display of commentary that accomplishes what this film accomplishes. There's an article here and a snippet there and this and that. This brings it all under one umbrella. And you have the personal stories on the arc through that. And so for me, and I'd say this even if I weren't related to this project, it hits on all cylinders. And now is the time for it. Not tomorrow and not yesterday.
To quote a great man, science is true whether you believe it or not.
Oh,
yeah. So I mean,
I've heard that somewhere.
But I'm going to tell you the quote that was uplifting, and I liked it. It was once the truth doesn't matter, it's not democracy anymore. That's so true. It's like that's the whole spirit of this. I do want to ask you both this. If it wasn't the vaccines and if it wasn't for medication and vaccines, I would have been dead years ago. I just turned 50. I know I would have made it past 30, maybe not even 20.
Half of all people would not make it to the age 35. That's correct.
Yep. So do you think that the public's lack of faith in drug companies plays into their skepticism of vaccines? Do you think it's like, whether it's what drug companies have done over the years, do you think they take the negative from that, create their own narrative? It doesn't help you have these charlatans doing their part. Do you think it's more than just...
The they in that is primarily liberal centered, by the way. You generally don't hear conservatives with an attitude of being anti-pharma. They might be pro-freedom, and you can't tell me, government, I can't work or can't. That's a different reason to be anti-vax, that they're anti-vax, than the liberal left. The liberal left were the OG anti-pharma folk. So go on, Scott.
Yeah, no, it's all of the above, and it's sadly there are mistakes that have been made in big pharma and in big government, and we have systems in place to check those. But if you look at the history of what the pharmaceutical industry has done for public health, it's a huge win. It's tough to talk about that because you have things like the opioid crisis, which was a catastrophe. That doesn't mean that those specific drugs can't be used correctly, but there were some very, very corrupt people trying to make the most money they could, and it caused harm. But again, by the percentages, big pharma, I use it because people use it, has been incredible success for the benefit of mankind. And it's when people cherry pick to find a few places and sometimes it almost look cool that they think it's all messed up. And it's like, I'm cynical about big pharma. I'm skeptical of big pharma, really, to the point of cynical. And that makes me cool when at the end of the day, they have 5 things in their medicine cabinet from big pharma that they're also very grateful for. So it's just, I don't like cynicism. I don't like cynicism.
Wait, Scott, how do you know what's in other people's medicine cabinet?
When I excuse myself at the dinner party, Neil, you might know.
So my last question, guys, and thank you this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for this. So, Neil, I've seen you on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. I've seen you on Bill Maher a bunch of times. And this is a question for both of you. Joe is a conspiracy-driven guy. I love him, though. I love his stuff. Bill is skeptical on medicine, doctors, etc. I've seen you, Neil, go on there. You guys disagree. At the end of the interview, it's a fun watch. You're respectful of each other, perhaps having a drink or libation, enjoying each other's company, and you walk away friends. Why can we not disagree or agree on COVID, or the vax, have a civil conversation without me being an effing snowflake or you being an effing this or that? What happened to the days of just respecting each other, having a discussion over a beer, shaking hands, walking away, and being civil versus this chaotic, toxic, whatever you want to call it? I'll let you both answer whatever you want to say.
Neil doesn't have much of an opinion on this, so no.
No, it's just briefly the by the way, Joe Rogan, I don't think he's so much a conspiracy theorist. He platforms whoever he thinks would be interesting to listen to, right, which includes conspiracy theorists.
Correct. He's
actually a pretty rational guy.
Yep.
And he doesn't peddle conspiracies. He just gives platform to them, and then he goes on to the next topic.
Except for his
all out conspiracy shows wouldn't even have me on it, right? That's not how they would function. So, and you're right, Bill can get weirdly anti-scientific in ways where he's sure he's still scientific. And I see myself on their shows as not talking to them, but talking to their audience.
Gotcha.
That's how I view it.
Gotcha.
And to the extent that I can reach them and touch them and influence them in a way that's for the greater good of democracy and civilization, I'm all in. Yes, we've lost civility in our discourse, on the point where when I post to social media, I never post opinions because people will just simply attack them, and which is an odd state because, and I wrote this in my recent book, we live in a time where you're not allowed to have opinions in front of someone who has a different opinion. They feel obligated to attack you because what they really want is everyone in the world to have exactly their opinion. And what kind of a world would that be?
Scott, did you want to add anything to that?
But just to underline the dangers of confirmation bias, right? That we look for evidence to support our point of view on the world, what we want to see, how we want to see the world, how our tribe sees the world. And we all suffer from it. Now it's just a matter of like, to what degree, and do we have the humility to say, oh, maybe I am suffering from confirmation bias, and I have to correct Neil on these things all the time, but he has the humility to let me correct him. So thank you for laughing.
Guys, I have to say, A Shot in the Arm is a wonderful documentary. For those listening or watching, give it a shot. I loved it. Really thought-provoking. Thank you for your time. Love talking to you both. Thank you for this.
Excellent. Thank you.